time for we the people to stand up and let our voices be heard. Please welcome my dear friend, Scott Dawson.
Thank you all. Thank you. What a great crowd in Covington County and Andalusia. We have been here many times. Prior to a campaign, preaching and visiting people, and now coming across your county, we're going to make another stop over in Opp. I don't know what we'd do without Covington. This is one of the very first stops we had after we announced that I was running over at the lodge. And so many of you came out then, and you've walked with us through the journey. Let me make some introductions real quick. This is my wife, Tara, who we've been married for 26 incredible years. Hunter, my son, is back there on a camera. Hope, my daughter, is on a camera. I see a trend developing there, but we have just been across the state telling people our story, that for 30 years we were in ministry lane, kind of like Billy Graham, but much smaller. Wouldn't have been able to do that without people walking along beside us. And one of those from the very first days was Tommy and Pat Northrup. And Miss Pat is here today, and I want to thank you for allowing us to be at Barrows. Would you join me in thanking them? Tommy was one of my very first business mentors, spiritual mentor, but also a business mentor that taught me how to read a balance sheet and profit and loss and cash flow. With that, we were able in 1987 to start SDA. Now it's as you guys know, we do student conferences. We work with Major League Baseball. It's a very effective ministry. But then when we started hearing about the corruption that was going on in Alabama politics, we went, all right, this is enough. 2 of the last 3 governors, and then if you go back and do the study, in the last half century, only 2 governors have served consecutive terms without being impeached, indicted, or arrested. And we went, not on my watch, not on our watch. Just like the Holy Spirit, it needs to be answered. Okay, the call needs to be answered. But for us, though, when we got into this, it is one of those deals where you've heard my story. You know where I've been. Now we're on a bus tour, 36 counties in 6 days. Yesterday we started with Tropical Storm Alberto, riding in a bus with 40-mile-per-hour winds. It felt like I was on a teeter-totter for 2 hours. But the people came out in Tuscaloosa, Northport, Brent, Thomasville. Then we ended up last night on the Gulf Coast. Today we're coming through on The Time Is Now, because you may wonder, why is it called The Time Is Now? Well, we just started listening to everything that's going on across our state. The time is now for us to have someone who can champion the cause of pro-life. We can defund Planned Parenthood and do family planning another way in the state of Alabama. It's time for us to stop talking about it and someone to actually do something about it. The time is now. That we've been tweeting very early on to get rid of Common Core and bring back common sense into our classrooms across the state of Alabama. So where we can teach young men and young ladies how to read, write, and do correct arithmetic by the time they get to 3rd grade. The chances of them getting in prison if they can't read by 3rd grade is overwhelming. When I heard that, I went, it's time to do something about it. We already spend $6.5 billion on education in our state. It's not time to throw another $100, $200 million. You're going to hear that. It's always a money issue in Alabama. It's a leadership issue. What we can do is bring mentors into our classroom. I'm looking out here. I see men and women who could volunteer some of their time in elementary schools across your county to make sure every kid is reading, writing, and doing arithmetic. If they're falling back on sight words, if they're not understanding their subtractions or their additions, that we can guarantee every kid is reading by the time he or she gets to 3rd grade. That alone would change the future of our state. When I say the time is now for us to understand with education that in middle school, that's when we start teaching the principles of economics. Not like we're doing right now, 2nd semester of 12th grade. Do y'all remember what you were doing 2nd semester of 12th grade? I was planning my trip to Panama City, okay? I'd already checked out. Let's bring those principles of finance into middle school so we can teach our kids how to be leaders and not just how to take a test. We've got to prepare them for life. The time is now for Alabama businesses to be set free. I was with the CEO of a company in Birmingham, and he said every month we joke around our boardroom that we should move our business over to Georgia so Alabama will come and recruit us and give us the incentives they're giving everyone else they're trying to recruit to the state of Alabama. Now, I will recruit industry to our state, but don't be deceived. It's not a one-man team. It takes a team to draw those industries into our state, and you give credit where credit's due to those men and women who are recruiting them. But it's time for us to set Alabama business people free. It's not taxes. We live in a low-tax state. But what they get us on are unnecessary regulations and unending licensing fees and occupational fees that seem to strangle Alabama business owners. It is time to set Alabama business owners free. Let me tell you what we're going to do. It's called Cut the Tape. It's an independent council that if you have an unnecessary fee that's placed on you or a regulation that's placed on your business, you come to this independent council, and the agency that instituted it cannot defend it to the independent council. It's immediately removed from the books. It is time to set the Alabama business person free, because you know what Alabama businesses do? They pay Alabama taxes. That alone would set our economy on fire. I know I'm the outsider. I'm just looking at this with a lens of common sense. I'm a champion of limited government. I have been endorsed by Bama Carey. I believe in the Second Amendment, but I'll tell you what else we need to do. I believe it's time for us to institute term limits in Montgomery. How many of you would love to have term limits applied? Let me just see. Look at all across the room. But you know what? That's going to be a hard thing to get passed, because the people in power have got to vote themselves out of power. And that may not be very popular. So if we get defeated on term limits, we're not going to just sink back. We're going to keep going forward, and we're going to say, if you don't give us term limits, give us voter recall. Give us a voice back to the people. That if a Yahoo does something, we don't have to wait till the next election to do something about it. We can do something about it right then. Because let me tell you, I'm not afraid of voter recall. May I remind you, Scott Walker in Wisconsin defeated voter recall. And by the way, Arnold Schwarzenegger would have never been governor of California without voter recall. I'm not afraid of it at all. But when I say the time is now, the time is now for us to turn the page of political history in Alabama. I'm the one that from the very beginning, whenever I find something out, I bring it before you. When we found out about a young girl, 13 years of age, that had not one, but 2 abortions and nothing was done about it, no investigation, we brought it before the people of Alabama. When HB 317, a bill that passed through our legislators at the last possible moment, they couldn't give us one example of a business we lost because we didn't have it applied, and it sunsets in 10 months. It's time for the backroom deals to end in Alabama. And a couple of weeks ago, when I brought it out in a press conference of a grant from ADECA given to a fringe organization whose organization founder said on video that if you're a faith leader and you preach that homosexuality is a sin, that's equated to committing murder. I brought it out before you. You read the grant. You read what's going on. I'm just telling you today what I have found as an outsider. If and when elected, we're going to shine a light in every dark crevice in Montgomery, and the time is now for us to be transparent before the people of Alabama. But I can't do it myself. I need you to partner with me, to link arms with me. Our family cannot do it by ourselves. We need you. You say, what can I do? I'm just one person. I'm just one vote. Can I remind you? Governor Morton in Massachusetts over 100 years ago was elected governor by 1 vote. His nickname after that was called Landslide. I thought that was funny. Anyway, all right, so I'm telling you, 1 vote could make the difference. You're saying, I'm just one person. What can I do? I'm asking every one of us here to call 5 people. If you would just call 5 people that you work with, that live in your neighborhood, and if you'll tell them to call 5 people and to show up to vote next Tuesday, I'm convinced 80+% of Alabamians don't even know there's an election taking place next Tuesday. So if you'll call 5 people, have them call 5 people, show up on June 5th, we'll shock all the politicos in the state of Alabama. We have signs that you can put in your yard. We've got pamphlets you can pass out in your Sunday school class or back at your place of business. We want you to be a part of this. In the old church life events, we had a formula. It was called this: participation plus ownership equals success. I want you to partner with us And I want you to take ownership of this campaign. It's not my campaign. It's our campaign. Because this is not their state. It's not my state. It's our state. This is our campaign. This is our state. And yes, you better understand it. It's our future. We're voting for our kids. We're voting for our grandkids. We're voting to move Alabama forward. I need your help. June 5th, we can do this.
Folks, we're with Scott Dawson, candidate for governor, state of Alabama. Chris Smith with Andalusia Star News is here with us. And of course, I'm Brother John. Well, thank you for giving us the time. I want to give everybody a little background on him. If you haven't gone to his website, go. Scott's age 49 years old. He's got a lovely wife, 2 children aged, 20 and 18?
20, now they're 22 and turned 19 on Monday.
Okay. He's running for governor. He has been called a minister all of his real working life, and he's been successful in doing it. We're proud to have him in Andalusia. We've only got him for a few minutes here, and really thankful that you're here, Scott. Thank you for giving us, all of us, some time.
Covington County's been, it was one of the very first places I came after we announced my friendship with Walt Merrill and Pat Northrup and those guys.
Yeah. Well, you know, I know we're going to have to be quick about this, but you did a extremely polished job there inside of Barris Furniture. It was a great presentation of a lot of your ideas rolled into one. You know, I was going through some of your stuff, and one of the things that I noticed is that, you know, you're pro-life, and that you're anti-tax, or at least need to restructure.
Limited government, how about
limited
that?
Government. But one of the things I want to know is, you know, Alabama is underfunded. I think, you know, maybe, I don't know if we're undertaxed or overtaxed or over-administrated or under-administrated. Sounds like you've got a handle on that. But what's your plan? I mean, in terms of, everybody thinks you're a minister, but if you run a ministry like yours, you're a businessman running a ministry.
We're governed by a board of directors, so to me, you have to be able to build a team.
Yeah.
If we're going to elect just one person going to Montgomery and fix everything, we're going to be solely disappointed. You got to elect someone who can build the foundation and draw people together who are like-minded. We've got to figure out what's happening in Alabama. The first act as governor is a performance audit across all state agencies. I don't know how long it's been since we've done one of those, but we need to evaluate every aspect. There was a committee that was formed that basically they came back and they couldn't figure out where all the money was going. And I was like, you wouldn't run your business like that. We wouldn't run our ministry like that. You have to know where that money's going.
Right.
So the first thing you want to do is a performance audit. Let's go across and just look at a budgeting system where you're prioritizing what has to be done, you're evaluating everything that's going on, and you eliminate the non-essentials. I think that may free up some money that everyone's saying we're underfunded. Maybe we're just not properly aligned. Maybe it's not a money issue. Maybe it's a leadership issue. And since I'm an outsider, it's time for us to go in and figure out what are we doing in Alabama, and what can we do better? When did good become our standard? You know, everybody says, well, things are going good.
Good is the enemy of great.
Absolutely. I don't even want to be great. I want to be the best.
Yeah.
I mean, I told somebody the other day, I'm so competitive. If I'm playing a senior adult in checkers, I want them crying. I mean, it's okay to win. It's okay to be the best. I don't want to step on anyone or step over anyone, but I want Alabama to be the very best she can possibly be.
Chris, you got? Well, you know, this is going to be a tough road to hoe. You're the underdog, but I get the feeling that you know you're tougher than a yellow toenail. You can you can do what you can deliver on what I think you're talking about. In terms of the economy, it's interesting to me that I think that this particular area down here is is underutilized. You go up to Tennessee Valley, of course, they've got transportation, they've got rail, they've got river, they've got interstates, great industries. Come down the west side of Alabama, now you get around the Black Belt, it's pretty sparse. But from about Jackson on down to Mobile, you've got everything from what used to be Geigy to Austell and Northrop Grumman. You come on the east side of the states, you've got an awful lot of industry that's developed down the Georgia-Alabama line. And then in Montgomery, you've got a core businesses, including Hyundai. You come to Covington County, and you've got, we're really from Opp all the way over, from Dothan all the way over to Evergreen, or, seems like there's kind of a hole in economic development. I don't know why that is. I think part of it's infrastructure and that kind of stuff, but what do you think you can do or bring to this that will be innovative, out of the box thinking that can bring industry to this area? Because something's got to change, or we're going to be the Korea of we are.
Well, to me, I look back at what Haley Barbour did over in Mississippi with the creation of the Golden Triangles.
Right.
We wouldn't want to call it Golden Triangle. We could call it county clusters, though, where we could get 2 counties together. And we could go out and do exactly what he did with that Golden Triangle, where he brought 3 counties together and in 1 decade introduced over $1 billion of industry. Because it may be that 1 county can't handle all the infrastructure that's needed, but with a private-public partnership and with opportunities where 2 counties or 3 counties could come together, we could improve infrastructure, we could improve education, we could improve the economic outlook in that area. If you look at the Black Belt, we need to look at industries that would thrive with that rich soil. The organic crop industry is booming right now. No one seems to have even thought about that. Right. Again, I don't have all the answers. That's what a politician has. I ask all the questions, and the question I'm asking is, why can't we have counties work together? And it doesn't seem like anyone can answer that. So I'm going to bring county commissioners together, county economic development groups together, the mayors together, the chief of police together, the sheriffs together, and go, how are we going to make your county succeed? We're going to have to get around the table and figure out, we may not be able to do it alone, but together, 2 counties coming in, not formalizing them together, but working together, we can provide industry for both counties.
I want to ask an interesting question, or to me it's an interesting question. I look down your agenda for today, and almost everywhere you go, it's Dutch Treat. And I know that means that you're operating on a shoestring. Now, we think we're the world's smallest television station, and we think we know what it is to operate on a shoestring. But you've explained to us that the people from Hobby Lobby have been really helpful to you. But do you feel like you'll have you feel like you're obligated, or feel like that there's a need for you to serve certain people more than others, or?
No, to me, the reason why it's Dutch Treat, that goes back to my fundamental understanding of, one, in ministry, I know it's not my money, so I try to be a good steward of everything God's given us. I think it's time for Montgomery politicians to realize it's not their money, it's our money. Montgomery doesn't work, we don't work for Montgomery politics. Politicians in Montgomery work for us.
Right.
The second thing I would say is, I knew I would never outraise seasoned politicians. Again, my donations are sometimes, I think our lowest has been $1. Our highest has been through David and Barbara Green, one person given 6 figures. The rest of them have just been average Alabamians that just want to see something happen, something different. So when I say it's Dutch Treat, to me, I go back to this. Government was never designed to meet every one of your needs. It can't do that. It implodes when that seems to be the mode. There were 4 levels prior to government ever getting involved in our lives. Used to be, there were congregations of all faiths, there were charities that were developed, corporations even got involved, and I'll tell you the final one, communities. When I was growing up, if somebody had a need, if they were down on their luck, the entire community jumped in and helped them get back on their feet. Well, all 4 of those have been removed, and the only option we have right now is government that will never sustain itself. It can't. It's time for us
And
to
the Bible
get back.
says to love your neighbor as yourself.
I think the church has abdicated her role. Communities have abdicated their role, and now the only option we have is government, and it will never sustain itself like that. We've got to get back to the process of limited government.
In Matthew 11:5, it goes on to say things like, the blind will be made to see, and the deaf will be able to hear, and the dead will be raised up. But it also says that the poor will be taught. Not asking you a theological question, but that I would like your opinion on that, because I think most people think that, and I've read a lot on this, maybe not nearly as much as you have, but a lot of people think that the solution to helping people out of poverty is to throw money at them. Now, if I read that scripture right, that means that we're supposed to educate them. I think it actually says educate them in the Word. But, you know, if you educate them in the Word, that means that you educate people to do other things better. Your comments in your speech in Andalusia about the third grade reading rang really loud and clear with me. On education, what would be your plan to move us ahead of the rest of the world?
Let's teach our kids to be leaders instead of followers. Third grade, every kid's reading, writing, and doing correct arithmetic. That's mentors in the classroom. I think it's very important. And I think you could spread this around the entire state. This is not something that could only be done in Andalusia. It could be done in Dothan. It can be done in Montgomery. We've got to get mentors in our classrooms. We just have to do the background checks and proper adult supervision. In middle school, I think you start teaching Alabama history again. We've seemed to get away from that. We teach principles of finance. We teach principles of leadership. There are a couple of pockets around our state right now that are teaching 7 habits of highly effective people.
This is one of them.
Yeah, those things need to be statewide, that we're teaching our kids to be leaders. Because if you know this, every middle schooler needs to realize they're already a CEO of themselves. Act like it. Carry yourself to act. Because if you're a CEO, you act a little bit different. Ownership is a lot different than just being involved. In high school, that's when we start kind of really putting the guardrails in. I'm proposing drug testing for all extracurricular activities, mandatory across the board. You can't get a parking permit unless there's a hair sample. It's not urine analysis. Not to hurt anybody. Remember, they're youthful offenders, so if they did come back positive, it would not carry on with them throughout their life. It would be for that particular moment in time. And let me tell you the reason why I want to do that. Because if you're dealing with a drug addict in high school, if you don't offer them help, they're going to end up in one of 3 places. One, they're not going to be able to pass a drug test to get a job, and they're going to end up in welfare, and we're going to pay for them. They're going to commit a crime, they're going to end up in jail, and we're going to pay for them. Or tragically, they're going to OD on heroin, and they're going to end up in the cemetery. I'm just trying to do something to help these students to say, I'm going to have a better life. And if we can, if there's a positive result that comes back, you know, a test that comes back positive, then that goes directly to the parents. No one else, directly to the parents. Let's get some parental involvement. If there's another test 3 months later that comes back positive, the school administration is notified that we've got a problem here and get some counseling involved with this student. If the third result comes back positive, then we need to offer drug rehabilitation inside that school. It's state-based, or give them an option of faith-based drug rehab. If we have first priority in our schools, FCA in our schools, I don't understand why we couldn't have Celebrate Recovery going on inside of our high schools to try to help some of these students. Now, let me be clear. That money will not be coming out of Education Trust Fund.
Right.
That would be private partnerships with corporations around our state and country who would help us eradicate drug addiction inside of our high school. Again, not to hurt anyone, but to help these students get a handle on it. Drug addiction doesn't know a race, it doesn't know a gender, it doesn't know a socioeconomic status. It destroys and impacts every family, I'm just trying to offer a solution. The number one role of the governor is protect your citizens. I mean, that's fundamental. So you got to protect your kids. No one kisses their kid goodbye that morning without the understanding they're going to come home that night. So I looked at this, and right now, unless something drastic takes place, we don't have a plan in place for next fall. Already, there's just no plan. So I'm like, as a governor, you act. And I'm not against arming teachers with parameters. I don't want it to be wide earp in the wild, wild west. So I give 5 parameters for us to be able to make sure we arm our teachers. Number 1, it's voluntary. It's not mandatory. I don't want to lose a good teacher because he or she does not want to carry. The second parameter is they go through extensive training. Florida proposed 132 hours. I'm saying that at 130 hours of APOS training, you'll be able to handle your weapon. The third parameter is that if you're going to carry, the students will not know who's carrying, but we want an independent mental health evaluation so that we know who's carrying and their mental state. The fourth parameter is that it's coordinated with local law enforcement. So we don't have anyone going rogue, and we know it's coordinated with local law enforcement. The fifth parameter is that if you're going to go through all that training as a teacher and continuing training education, if we're going to pay a stipend to our football coaches, our softball coaches, you're our first line of defense for students, we're going to offer you a stipend because we're going to protect the students of the state of Alabama. That's my job as governor, and I'll give you my word, we'll protect our kids.
And I think it's ironic that we've got hardened courthouses and metal detectors in every courthouse. They're the people that make the laws are protected, but the people that want to be protected aren't. I think that's ironic, and I'm sure you have a comment on that. But my question, and I think this is going to be one of the leading things that anyone that is a governor is going to have to deal with in the state of Alabama, and that's prison reform. I mean, I don't know why we haven't had the federal government shove something down our throats now, and that's going to change everything economically if they do that. Absolutely.
I would say this. I grew up in Inslee. There's not a mom in Inslee praying for her son or daughter to be in a bigger, better privatized prison.
Right.
It's just not the case. So we're looking at prison reform. Maybe we should look at this as prisoner reform. We got to get a grasp on drug addiction. You ask the sheriffs, they'll tell you 60 to 75% of their mental health patients are drug-induced mental health issues, and they have no option. If you're a mental health patient right now, the probate judge, the DA, the sheriff, they have 2 options: lock you up or put you out on the streets when really you need help. So as a leader, you look at it in 2 ways: crisis management, long-term thinking. Crisis management is we better open up fresh beds right now, because if that mandate comes down, it would be a financial tsunami across our state. Yeah. So we got to open up beds for mental health patients right now. But long term, we got to get a grasp on drug addictions with the opioids. That's the reason these people that are talking about legalizing marijuana, I'm just going, guys, if you think we're in a crisis right now with opioids, marijuana is the gateway drug. It would be unheard of what we will see in a decade. Leaders look further down the road. We get a grasp on drug addiction. I think we'll get a grasp on prison reform and make it prison reform. By the way, it's a correctional facility. It was never supposed to be called a generational facility. And you go check out the prisons, it's now 2nd and sometimes 3rd generation being locked up. Somebody's got a handle on that, and shame on us Republicans for not offering a hand to get prisoner reform installed in Alabama.
Well, I know we got to get off the bus now. We're about out of time, but Chris, you got another question? I want to thank you for spending your time with us. And of course, I always have to make this is not a paid political announcement. This is an interview. It does not necessarily reflect the view of the staff or the station at WKNI. And I have to say that it's been a great interview. Thank you. Now, I will ask you one thing.
Okay.
I'm going to give you a free shot.
All right.
If you want to tell the audience out there where they can send a donation, tell it to the man right there.
Hey, we would love for you to just get more information. ScottDawson.com, Scott Dawson 2018 on Facebook. All the information is there. But I'd just like to ask you, if you like what you hear, and you want to see the page of Alabama history being turned, call 5 friends. Call 5 people you go to church with, 5 people you work with. Tell them to watch this. Tell them to go online. We would love to have their vote, their support. ScottDawson.com. The vote is happening June 5th. Thank you for watching, and we're signing off.